All right, I'd like to call to order our 4:30 meeting,
November 15th.
Murrieta City Council. I'll call us to order. And could the city clerk please call roll for us?
Councilmember White,
Here.
Councilmember Stone, Councilmember Warren,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem DeForest,
Here.
Mayor Ingram. Let the record reflect that all members are present with the exception of Councilmember Stone and Mayor Ingram, who has an excused absence.
Fantastic. And before we go into closed session, city clerk, is there any public comments on closed session items only, please?
Seeing none?
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll go over the closed session agenda.
Absolutely, thank you. As listed on the agenda, the City Council will meet in closed session on 3 items. CS1, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4. The city is considering whether to initiate litigation in one case. CS2, conference with legal counsel pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.95B to consider the following workers' compensation claims. Dean Hale versus City of Murrieta, claim numbers ADJ 1218427, ADJ 1218402, ADJ 131858882, and ADJ 132160047. The City Council will also meet in closed session number 3, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Sections 54956.9D2 and D3, significant exposure to litigation, and that's in 2 cases. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you so much, City Clerk. With that, we're going to go into our recess to close session, and we'll reconvene this meeting at 6 p.m. for our regular meeting. Thank you so much. Good afternoon. Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's 6:57. We're a little bit early. And we'd like to wish Mayor Ingram a speedy recovery as he recovers from his cold. So, announcements for closed session. Madam City Attorney, could you provide a report from our closed session?
Thank you, I will. Item CS1, the council met in closed session on one matter to consider whether to initiate litigation in one case pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4. There's no reportable action on that item. On the second item, the City Council considered a matter involving a workers' compensation claim in Dean Hale versus City of Murrieta. In that matter, the City Council unanimously authorized the settlement of that case. And the third item involves 2 cases of exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2 and D3. In those items, the council were updated. There's no reportable action. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney. Would the city clerk please call roll for determination of a quorum?
Councilmember White,
Here.
Councilmember Stone,
Here.
Councilmember Warren,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem DeForest,
Here.
Mayor Ingram. Let the record reflect that all members are present with the exception of Mayor Ingram, who has an excused absence. In addition, Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to note that Councilmember Stone arrived at 4:30 at closed session as well.
Thank you so much. We will now have the Pledge of Allegiance and our invocation, and if you could please remain standing, I would like Councilwoman Lori Stone to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Cy Rangel from Calvary Baptist Church, Temecula. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, as we open our City Council meeting, we give our thanks to you and all the men and women who have served in our military forces as we celebrated this past Veterans Day. It is our military who have served, fought, and died for this great nation you've blessed us with. It is you, Lord, who have given us the freedom to come together to meet and the freedom to attend the church of our choice to worship and serve our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Help us to remember that freedom is not free, comes at a high cost, and every American family has paid the price. Lord, as our council members listen, consider, make decisions for the citizens of Murrieta, Give them your guidance and wisdom so that your will be done tonight and forever. In Jesus' holy and mighty name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
You may be seated. Thank you so much, Pastor Rangel, and thank you for your service, sir. All right, we're moving on to presentations. Murrieta Firefighters Association, 75th anniversary. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I have Fire Captain and President of the Association, Joe Bork.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem DeForest, rest of council and city staff. We are here tonight to recognize the achievement of a significant milestone in the life of Murrieta Fire. In 1947, citizens of the small farming community of Murrieta voted to establish the Murrieta Fire Protection District. Through donated funds, this district purchased its first fire engine and built its first fire station on C Street. And for the next 39 years, it would operate as a volunteer fire district. In 1987, our fire district became a full-service combination municipal fire district, being the only one in southwest Riverside County. And then in 1993, the Murrieta Fire Protection District would merge with the city of Murrieta as a subsidiary district and later rebranding itself as Murrieta Fire and Rescue in 2017. Today, Murrieta Fire and Rescue is a career fire service organization consisting of over 76 professionals that provide services from 5 strategically located fire stations and remains at the forefront in providing quality service to its residents and visitors. Because of our city council and city staff's leadership, investment, and prioritization of public safety, Murrieta Fire and Rescue continues to remain the premier fire department in Riverside County. In recognition of this major milestone, your Murrieta firefighters would like to present you with something for you to always remember that we wouldn't be here today celebrating our 75th year without your support. This token of gratitude was first conceptualized over a year ago by our Deputy Chief, Mike Lopez, and brought to life by our very own Andy Stang. So if you would all please come forward, including City Manager Kim Summers, Assistant City Manager Ivan Haller, and Police Chief Tony Conrad. We have a fire badge for you. I know it's your lifelong dream to be to get a fire badge. And please accept our deepest gratitude in helping us achieve this major milestone. We get a picture? These are unbelievable. Thank you so much.
Come on on this side, yeah. I'll shoot one.
Okay, thank you.
For sure. Will you go on that side?
Okay.
Right on both sides. Do a few. 1, 2, 3. Hit this one as well. 1, 2, 3. Do you want to go ahead? Volunteer.
1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you.
once again, thank you to Murrieta Fire and Rescue. What an honor it is to be serving as a council member during this amazing time of 75 years accomplishment as they exit the door. Yeah. I don't know if the night can get better than that. So let's go to the approval of agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Seeing none.
I'd like to call for a motion and a second to approve the agenda. We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion carries unanimously, 4-0.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Department Commission Report. City Manager, Administrative Update.
I have nothing this evening, thank you.
Thank you. And Governing Board Commission Reports. Madam City Clerk. We have Councilmember White.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem DeForest. My report has been filed and will be available on the website. If anyone would like to read about the last meeting we had for SCAG, the Southern California Association of Governments. And for December, the SCAG will be dark, so the next meeting will be in January. That concludes my report, Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Councilmember White. Councilmember Stone.
Thank you very much. We had a WRCOG meeting and there's nothing to report out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Stone. Councilmember Warren.
Thank you. At this time, I have no report as I did not attend a meeting.
And myself, nothing to report out, no meetings attended on my behalf. So thank you so much. Now we're going to move to public comments on non-agendized items. Madam City Clerk.
Now is the time for public comment. Any person may address the governing bodies on any subject pertaining to city business. Normally, no action may be considered or taken by the governing bodies on any matter not listed on the agenda. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Megan Dudley Theisel.
Megan, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. My name is Megan Dudley Theisel. This evening, I'd like to speak to you regarding the city's short-term vacation rental ordinance. My husband spoke a few weeks ago regarding the issue, and I'm here to bring some concerns to your attention. I'd like to start by saying that I think that the city has done a great job in writing the ordinance, and it does a really good job of trying to protect the rights of citizens and neighborhoods. But we noticed some lack of follow-through when the ordinance is not being abided by that's concerning, and I thought that the council needed to be made aware of what we've experienced. We live in a neighborhood of single-family residences. One of our neighbors started renting her house using short-term vacation rental apps without being permitted. A neighbor complained to code enforcement, and she was notified that she needed to be permitted in order to use her property that way. After she was notified, she applied for a permit. In the meantime, while she waited for her permit to be approved, she never removed her ad from the vacation rental sites, which is in direct violation of the ordinance, which states that you are not allowed to advertise without being permitted. She also had renters in her house more than once while waiting for her permit to be approved. In my neighborhood, a vacation rental is only allowed if it is a hosted rental with the property owner or someone that they designate staying on the premises during the nighttime hours. The advertisement that my neighbor has posted is to rent the entire house. There are no other structures on the property where a host would be able to stay. She is using it as an unhosted rental with the expectation that her neighbors will let her know if there is a problem. When I spoke to someone in the city about this, I was informed that the property owner is taken at their word regarding whether there would be someone on site. Her advertisement says that more guests are allowed than is acceptable per the ordinance, and she has an outdoor TV posted, which violates the ordinance's restrictions about amplified outdoor sound. All of these issues were made known to the city employees before her permit was approved, and despite that fact, And despite the fact that she was never in full compliance with the ordinance, her permit was approved anyway. Essentially, what I was told in my communication with city employees was that now I have to police her and continually complain to try to get her permit revoked when it never should have been issued in the first place. I'm incredibly disappointed that the city would approve a permit when the applicant is not in compliance with the stated requirements. As a parent of 2 small children, I do not like not knowing who's next door. It is unsettling that every time new renters arrive, my husband and I have to wonder if they're going to be loud and rowdy and keep us up all night, which has happened more than once, or if it's going to be quiet and fine. Thank you for your time and consideration on this matter.
Thank you so much, Megan.
That concludes public comment.
Thank you. Now moving on to the consent calendar, approval of items 1 through 7. Items on the consent calendar are considered routine and may be acted on by one motion and vote. There will be no discussion of these items unless specific items are removed from the consent calendar for separate motions. Are there any requests from the City Council to pull any consent calendar items for discussion or abstaining from voting?
Seeing none.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, are there any members of the public requesting to speak on a consent calendar item?
Seeing none.
I'd like to call for a motion and second to approve the consent. We have a motion by Councilwoman White and a second by Cindy Warren, and now we need a vote. Thank you.
Motion carries unanimously, 4-0.
Thank you very much. And moving on to our public hearings. First one will be the adoption of the 2022 building code. Are there any members of the City Council that wish to abstain or recuse themselves from this item? Seeing none, we'll move on to the staff presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. Good evening. So we've brought before you the second reading, public hearing, and adoption of the Murrieta building code. So that should say building codes, not building and fire codes. I apologize for that. So if you recall from our meeting 2 weeks ago, we are recommending the adoption of the ordinance which amends portions of the Title 15 of the Murrieta Municipal Code, which is where our building codes are adopted. The ordinance to adopt the current building standards code, which was produced by the state, if adopted, would become effective January 1st, 2023. And for the members of the public, the building standards codes are also known as the California Code of Regulations, or Title 24, which is their more common name. So the City Council last adopted the triennial code back in 2019. As I mentioned, they're adopted every 3 years. State law allows local amendments to the building standards code for administrative standards, and they may not be less restrictive than the state code. So amendments are based on the items that are before you. You may recall that we presented a local amendment dealing with swimming pool barriers or fencing, and the City Council directed that that be removed. The ordinance before you this evening does not contain that suggested local amendment from 2 weeks ago. So local jurisdictions are required to enforce the adopted CBSC, and it applies statewide with or without local code adoption. So in terms of summarizing the adoption and the amendments, we're essentially adopting the state code, but staff is also recommending an administrative provision which would allow a board of appeals consisting of building industry members and construction industry professionals and representatives to sit on that appeals board rather than what the state code would provide for, which would be local officials. So with that, staff recommends that you conduct the public hearing and second reading of Ordinance 583-22 entitled, "An Ordinance Adding and Amending Portions of Title 15 of the Municipal Code Adopting the 2022 California Building Standards Code." So with that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have, and also happy to have Mr. Andy Groh with me.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the changes that you made on our direction. Any questions from my fellow council members?
Just to reiterate, you have removed the permanent fencing around the pool, correct?
That's correct. So there's the 2 out of the 7 elements that a property owner could select. So that's what's in the state code. That's what we're using.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Stone. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Madam City Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We have one public testimony, Gordon Mize.
Welcome.
Welcome. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. My name is Gordon Mize. I've been living in this valley and working in Murrieta for the last 23 years. I work for Lee and Associates Commercial Real Estate. I'm here tonight to reflect probably a little bit more on both fire and building code updates as well as other things. So I probably should have spoken in public comment. But I'm here really to reflect on the DAG, the Development Advisory Group, and how I believe it's a great resource for the city and for items like the building code and fire code updates. When Ivan introduced the DAG in 2015, he gathered a large group of really great industry professionals, and that group has met consistently over the last 7 years. These industry professionals, along with the great staff, many of them who you see here tonight, we've been able to discuss, dissect, recommend thoughtful ideas and modifications and changes to the code updates, new policies, new ideas. I'm very honored to be a part of that group, and I wanted the council to know I believe this is an invaluable tool for the city, currently and especially for the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mize. Appreciate that.
Mayor Pro Tem, that concludes public testimony.
All right, I'd like to close the public hearing. Any discussion from my fellow colleagues? Miss Councilwoman Warren.
Wherever I am. I want to thank staff for taking our recommendations and our suggestions and taking care of that for us. We do appreciate that. And you did a great job, and thank you very much.
And a second? We have a motion by Cindy, thank you. Councilwoman Warren, and a second. Waiting for that second. By Councilwoman Stone. Thank you, and then all.
Motion carries unanimously, 4-0.
Thank you so much. Moving on to the fiscal year 2023-2024 allocation of community development block grants. Any members of the City Council that wish to abstain or recuse themselves from this item?
We only have to do that.
Seeing none, we'll move on to the staff presentation. Thank you so much.
Well, good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm Kristen Crane, Assistant City Manager. And tonight I'll be presenting on item 9 on your agenda, which is a public hearing to allocate community development block grant funds for fiscal year 23-24, which begins July 1st, 23 and extends through June 30th, 2024. It's not up yet. Just a moment. Okay, perfect. So the Community Development Block Grant Program, which we refer to as CDBG, is a federal program that is managed by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. And these are funds that cities all over the country receive from the federal government with strict protocols on how those funds can be used. CDBG funds have to meet one of 3 national objectives. 1, to benefit low and moderate income persons. 2, prevent and or eliminate blight, or 3, meet an urgent need. Again, the community development block grant monies are federal funds that are allocated to the city and that the city opts to have the county administer. Each year, the city has to go through a process to decide how to spend this money according to HUD's strict requirements, and that's what we're here to do with you this evening. So a couple of years ago, the city of Murrieta became what's called an entitlement city. Murrieta was able to do this since the city's population exceeds 50,000, and Murrieta has a contract with the county to assist with the administrative aspects of running this program, which are really quite involved and technical. So having the county administer that is very cost-effective for the city and advantageous. So by being an entitlement city, the city of Murrieta is able to get a larger allocation of community development block grant funds. For fiscal year 23-24, the estimated amount of CDBG funds for Murrieta is $590,000, which is the same amount as this current year, 22-23. As an entitlement city, HUD also allows cities to allocate up to 20% of that pot of money toward administrative expenses. And again, under those community development block grant guidelines, the city is able to use up to 7% of the 20% toward administrative costs that the city of Murrieta incurs for managing this program, which equates to $41,300, and that offsets what would otherwise be a general fund expense for the staff time that your city of Murrieta staff expends to run that program. And then in addition, the county receives the balance of the 20%, so 13% for their even bigger role with administration of this program. And that's about $76,700. So combined, it's $118,000. So after the 20% for administrative expenses, which is, like I said, $118,000, that leaves a remaining balance of $472,000 to allocate for what we call program awards. Per HUD's guidelines, the city can allocate to nonprofit organizations a maximum of 15% of its full allocation, and this is what the city has done historically. 15% equates to, for this coming year, $88,500. That's the same amount as last year, so that's what we have to work with this evening, $88,500 as we look at the nonprofits. As in years past, the city completes a very extensive public outreach process to the nonprofit community, alerting them of this funding opportunity that includes notices to past recipients, a press release, social media, and information posted on the city's website. You can see on this slide that the outreach began on September 26, 2022, and the applications were due from the nonprofits on October 27, 2022. This year, the city received 12 applications totaling $425,000, which I understand may be a record high for the city. The staff has reviewed those 12 applications against the CDBG funding objectives and the scoring matrix that the City Council has established, which was included in your packet as attachment 3, and that was provided to all of the potential applicants as well. So as laid out in that document that the City Council established specific funding priorities for how to decide how to use those funds. Those are community food pantries, women's programs, domestic violence prevention programs, and youth development programs. In addition to those 4 priority areas, the City Council has also established scoring criteria that include the organizational ability and capacity of the nonprofits, financial capacity and stability, ability to implement, beneficiaries of the programs that would be funded from these monies, and an administrative aspect. And this chart that you see shows the proportion of how all of those categories are weighted. This next slide displays this year's applicants, the amount of funding that they each requested, each applicant's score based on the City Council's established criteria and staff's recommended funding levels. This is also included on page 2 of the agenda report. Of the 12 applications received, 7 scored 100. Of the 5 that did not score 100, 2 were organizations that had not previously received CDBG funds from the City of Murrieta. 2 are proposing projects that, though are very much highly valuable to the community, they do not align with those 4 priority areas that the City Council has identified. And then last, there's one organization that is ineligible for consideration as a public service project since they are not a nonprofit organization. Based on the criteria that are established by the City Council, staff is recommending that the 7 applicants that received 100, score of 100, be funded at the levels shown on the far right-hand column for a total allocation of $88,500, which again is 15% of the $590,000. There were 5 groups that requested $10,000, so the staff recommendation is to fund each of them for that amount, and then the balance available is $38,500, which we were proposing would then be split between the 2 other organizations which requested $60,000 and $50,000 respectively, so they would each receive $19,250. Beyond the $88,500 for those public service applications, the remaining $383,500 is recommended to be allocated toward the city's pedestrian safety enhancement program, which includes installing new and upgrading existing pedestrian ramp facilities so that they are ADA compliant for disabled access. This is an eligible use of CDBG funding, and the city has a long list of projects around the community that need to be completed that would be eligible for this funding. The total fiscal impact associated with this agenda item is the expenditure of approximately $590,000 in CDBG funds, which again includes $88,500 for the nonprofit organizations, $383,500 for the pedestrian safety enhancement project, and $118,000 for administrative costs for the city and the county. A budget appropriation will be necessary to establish the revenue and expenditure budgets once those amounts are finalized. And if it ends up that the total amount of CDBG money received is more or less than the $590,000 that we're planning on, then the city manager would be authorized to adjust it proportionally, adjust those allocations. So in conclusion, again, the recommended action is for the City Council to conduct the public hearing tonight, to adopt the proposed resolution that was included in your packet to appropriate the CDBG funding for 23-24, and authorize the city manager to execute all of the related agreements. That concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I do believe that several of the applicants may be here and would like to speak with you, and then my coworker Rosa and I are prepared to use a calculator if the council wants to look at any adjustments. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Do I have any questions from the dais? Questions? Yeah, we'll take questions now. Any questions? Councilwoman White? No? No questions? All right, thank you so much. I'll open the public hearing. Madam City Clerk, is there any individuals wishing to speak on this item?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem. Diane Sitar.
Oh, yes, there is.
Good evening. My name is Diane Sitar, and I'm a volunteer with Assistance League of Temecula Valley. Assistance League is a 100% volunteer organization that's been serving Riverside County since 1989. Over the past 34 years, Assistance League has offered Operation School Bell program, which is also known as OSB. And we've clothed more than 40,000 pre-K through 12th grade students with the help of your CBDG grant. OSB provides new school clothing to students that are deemed to be at risk and meet HUD income standards of very low or extremely low income. At-risk youth includes foster and homeless children. Families have the opportunity to shop at their local Kohl's store with a tax-free cash allotment of $125 per student. If it weren't for OSB, the students we serve may go without adequate shoes or clothing, which can lead to being ridiculed or bullied. And OSB helps alleviate such negative situations by meeting a very basic need, and that's new school clothing. Parents and guardians and educators agree that new school clothing boosts self-esteem and builds confidence. It also strengthens the likelihood that the children will do better in school. As of today, year to date for the current 22-23 school year, our OSB program has provided new school clothing to 1,609 children, and we still have additional dressings to be done. Of that 1,609 students dressed to date, 408 of those students reside in the city of Murrieta. This is a 28% increase from the previous school year when we dressed 293 students from Murrieta. We still have more dressings to do. We have one more dressing to do in Murrieta that will take place in January or February, which has been delayed at the request of the Murrieta School District. To date, we have spent over $44,000 dressing children from Murrieta, and we expect to spend another $12,000 to complete the dressings that we have. We would like to thank the City Council for your consideration again for our grant, and we couldn't have done it without a partner like you. We thank you so much.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you for everything you do.
Diane, can you come back up? I want to ask you a question. Your numbers are remarkable, and I understand that you had a little hiccup within the Assistance League, and you actually had to shut your doors for quite a while. Can you just
give a little rundown on that?
Yes, please.
In May of this year, we had a toilet overflow, and it ran for over a day, and it flooded out a good portion of our thrift store, which generates a vast majority of our revenue that gives back to the community. We had to close our facility for 9 weeks to restore the thrift store. We had a task force, we hired a contractor, and we were able to open back up in 9 weeks. So this year we've struggled a little bit, and we had to dip into reserves because a small clause in our insurance policy limited our coverage from, instead of $3 million to $35,000. So we funded the difference to restore our thrift store. So we're struggling. We're not struggling. I won't say we're struggling. We have to rebuild our reserves, and so it's one more challenge over what we experienced with COVID. But we've made it through, strong as ever.
And still clothes
Yes.
children in our valley. God bless you.
Absolutely.
Councilmember White.
In speaking to the Assistance League, which I support wholeheartedly, and as a councilwoman, I had heard from a member that your insurance was going to cover your loss of income during those 9 weeks. Did they not come
No,
through with
because
that
our
because of the
coverage was
clause?
limited to the $35,000, which included loss of income.
Wow.
And so we lost nine weeks of revenue from the thrift store.
Goodness.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the extra questions.
Jennifer Evans.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem DeForest, and also council members, and for you, ladies, for doing all of that hard work. It's absolutely amazing. My name is Jennifer Evans. I'm the program manager at Michelle's Place Cancer Resource Center. Cancer is a very ugly word, and I would imagine if I talked to any of you on this board or out here, I'd be hard-pressed to find someone that hasn't been impacted personally themselves or by someone in their family or their friends. So Michelle's Place has been in the Inland Valley for 21 years, supporting those all impacted by cancer, either a diagnosis or for their loved ones. I'm the program manager at Michelle's Place, so I get the pleasure and the honor of creating programs that include financial resources, navigation, transportation. Also, we are looking at our holiday season coming up where we take care of our children whose parents are facing cancer in their treatment. So we get them adopted, they get Christmas gifts, they also get back to school clothes, they get a backpack, a party in the air park, so many great things, a Thanksgiving meal, and we are so excited and pleasured to be able to do that for them. As someone who's lost their mom to cancer, I wish that my mom would have had a place like Michelle's Place to embrace her, to give her support, so that she could find someone that was going through what she was going through, someone who truly understands what cancer brings to your life. I want to thank all of you for supporting us through this. It is because of your support that we are able to do this. And alone within these past 12 months, we've seen over a 50% increase in the clients that are walking through our door. And as we look at the CDBG forms, we have over 291 families from Murrieta alone that we've helped with over 1,800 completely free resources. That includes groceries, comfort items, transportation to their doctor's appointments when they can't afford it, maybe a mammogram, so much more. We are there for them, and we don't ask anything in return. We want to just thank you once again for your consideration of funding this, and please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Appreciate what you do for our community.
Jennifer, hold on. Don't go anywhere.
And
Sorry.
that's Councilwoman Stone.
Yes,
do you have
ma'am.
a question?
No, I just have a comment. I agree with you. I wish that Michelle's Place was around in 1994 when my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer in the end of May and lost her life in December. So and that's how Michelle's Place got started. It was due to Michelle, who lost her life at a very, very young age, I think age 26.
Yes,
and so Michelle was part of the very, very first Race for the Cure. And what the Watson family and Kim and your staff and volunteers and what they have done to raise awareness about early detection in breast cancer, but now has taken on all types of cancer. And I want to congratulate you on your new building and your goal and your mission and what you're doing to support the families and those that are going through treatment or looking for resources as well. So God bless you.
Thank you, Ms. Stone. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Maria Banukatsiri.
Welcome, Maria.
Good evening. My name is Maria Banukitsiri, and I manage the Community Food Pantry Murrieta. And this year is a very special year because we celebrate our 25 years service to the community of Murrieta. 25 years ago, 5 volunteers set up a small food pantry in the rectory garage of St. Martha's Church here in Murrieta and delivered food to only 5 families. Today, we operate the Community Food Pantry in Murrieta and the second-hand treasure thrift store. Together, we have thousands of local residents who don't have any food to eat or need help with clothing or other basic needs. We also make resources available to save the money and better their lives. For instance, during the pandemic, we provided space for COVID vaccination and made safety supplies available, such as masks and sanitizer. Other resources are available on a regular basis, such as utility assistance and CalFresh, just to name a few. Since 1997, we have changed location 5 times, each time to a larger building to accommodate the always increasing need of the community. Our current location is more than 8,000 square feet with a large walk-in fridge and a separate walk-in freezer. Our warehouse has room to store several tons of food. During these 25 years, we have provided weekly groceries to more than 240,000 families. We have distributed over 26 million pounds of food. Some of the food is delivered on a weekly basis to the homebound seniors in Murrieta. Some of the seniors tell us that the only food we give them is the only one they have. They stretch the food. If they give a small piece of ham, they eat a little piece every day. So we're really there for them. All of this has been a team effort of more than 150 dedicated volunteers. Without their help, none of this would be possible. We would like to thank St. Martha Catholic Church and their parishioners for the continued support and the local merchants who continue to be generous in donating fresh food. Sam's Club, Albertsons, Target, Amazon Fresh, Barron's, and Ralph's Riverside Creamery. A special thanks to Pechanga. They are always there for us when we need them. And of course, we enormously appreciate the City of Murrieta for the annual grant that helped us purchase the extra food needed to fulfill our mission. With your help, we will continue to alleviate hunger in the area. Please help us make the next 25 years even better. Thank you again, and God bless you. And by the way, you are invited to tour the pantry. You will love it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I congratulate you on 25 years. I'm sorry that we have to have a food pantry, that everyone doesn't have food, but thank you so much for what you do. And I know you are such an asset to our community, and we greatly appreciate you. So,
Thank you.
Councilmember Stone.
Also, Maria, in 2008 and 2009, when we were faced with one of the worst recessions of the nation, at that time, I worked for our county supervisor, our 3rd district supervisor, and one of the social issues that I oversaw was homelessness. And I actually went undercover as a homeless person, and if you want to, you can Google Lori Stone homeless. And what happened at that time, it was the changing face of homelessness. It was families like yours and mine that became homeless. It wasn't the typical stereotype of man or woman dealing with behavioral health issues or addiction. And we found through this outreach that our food pantry shelves were empty. And from our outreach, a lot of wonderful new programs came to fruition. And one of them was the Professional Women's Roundtable Peanut Butter Drive.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And I know that they are doing their peanut butter drive as we speak. And over the last decade, they have donated more than 10,000 jars of peanut butter. And this year, Promise Church here in Murrieta has also done a peanut butter drive that will benefit your food pantry. So congratulations on your 25th anniversary.
Thank you.
Yes, I agree with Mayor Pro Tem. It's a sad thing that we have to have a food pantry, but you know, we are faced again with a possible recession, and more than ever, you are going to need food, and especially peanut butter. And why peanut butter? It's because it doesn't need to be refrigerated, and it's a great source of protein.
Protein.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
the keyword.
Yes.
Thank you so
thank
much.
you
We
so
appreciate
much.
the Peanut Butter Club and everybody else that helped us. Everybody has been wonderful in Murrieta, and we have so many food drive after food drive during these holidays. But I keep telling the people, you know, my clients have the custom to eat every day, not just during the holidays. So
Right.
please remember us.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Maria. We greatly appreciate you.
Allison Willets.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for allowing us to speak tonight. My name is Allison Willets, and I am the Executive Director of Community Mission of Hope and Rancho Damacitas. Together, we have a combined 40 years of serving in this valley. We have multiple programs that are serving our community, including our Empowerment Village, which is out at our Rancho Damacitas campus, which is housing for homeless single mothers and their children. We also have our Housing Resource Center, which is located in Temecula. I've worked many times with Brian Ambrose and your homeless outreach team to help our neighbors without homes to get into housing or to get ready, to get a document ready for housing. We also have our food pantry. We love what Maria has done. She's the gold standard of food pantries, and when we got together, we went over and we toured Maria's pantry and said, we want to be like this. We opened up that pantry to our Murrieta residents as well, as many of them were coming into Temecula to work and would come on their lunch breaks for their food. Last year, I'm so proud to say that we opened our Hope Family Housing Program in Murrieta. It is a 2-year transitional housing program, and currently is all those houses are full of single mothers and their children. And so I just wanted to point out, I know that there were a couple of different qualifications for this CDBG grant, and one of them was food pantries, and I saw that we had that designation. But the other one was women's programs, and so we are going to be using this program as a next step up from our Rancho Damacitas program. So once the moms have gone through that program, which is financial literacy, we do leadership, We do wellness, parent and child enrichment. The next step for them is to go on to our Hope Family Housing Program, which is in Murrieta, and that's another 2-year program. And so the families who are there now are thriving here. Kids attend Bella Vista Middle School, Alta Vista, Buchanan, and our goal is really to help them become productive members of the Murrieta community. This is the very first time that we have put in for CDBG funds, so I hope that you will consider that tonight and consider that we are working in Murrieta very hard as one of the only housing programs that's really here in your city. And so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
Any questions? Councilwoman White.
Hi, it's nice to see you.
Hi, good to see you again.
I had the privilege, I think, twice to tour your facility and see firsthand some of the projects and the programs and the placement services that you do and the stringent requirements you have for moms and their children to enter the program. And I think you're doing some commendable work.
Thank you.
And it certainly does impact our city of Murrieta, so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
You mentioned Rancho Damacitas and the Village of Hope. Are those in your application as well?
They're all in the application, yes. But the Hope Family Housing Program, it's 3 single-family homes which are actually in Murrieta. Those are actually in the application as well. They should all be in there.
Okay, I was just wondering about staff's classification of you at your request as a food pantry, so I can talk to staff about that.
Okay.
That was my comment and question.
Sure.
Thank you, Allison.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Allison. I appreciate what you do for our community.
Melanie House.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. My name is Melanie House. I'm from Hospice of the Valleys. I'm Development Coordinator and Grant Writer. I wanted to just quickly talk about what our program's about, but also I wanted to just let you guys know that 62% of our patients in Murrieta last fiscal year were women. I know that our grant didn't necessarily fit the funding, the places that you guys want to put money at, but we, 62%, which is over majority, are women. The Senior Assistance Program provides compassionate hospice care to terminally ill patients and support to their families. The program pays for the direct cost of hospice care for senior citizens and severely disabled. Direct hospice care includes, but is not limited to, personal visits by physicians, nurses, home health aides, social workers, and spiritual care advisors. The provision of durable medical equipment, medical supplies, medication delivery, and bereavement support services. Our services extend to our patients and their families while the patient is living, and then up to 13 months after death. After the patient passes, caregivers receive bereavement support that includes phone calls and/or personal visits by bereavement counselors or chaplains, and access to grief support groups, bereavement books and mailings, as well as memorial services of remembrance twice a year. Hospice of the Valleys does not believe in adding to the burden of patients or their families by asking for reimbursements or copays that are not covered by insurance. For example, Medicare does not cover a $5 copay for each medication that each of our patients are prescribed. However, Hospice of the Valleys takes care of that cost and does not pass that copay on to our patients. Sometimes our patients are on 30, 40, 50 medications. During times when end of life is imminent, we do not want our patients and their families to incur yet another expense. And our goal is to ensure that no one is ever turned away or provided with limited hospice care simply due to their inability to pay or underinsurance. CDBG funds are used toward patient care and costs that are not covered by Medicare or other insurance. And so again, I just wanted it to be noted that 62% of our patients in Murrieta last year were women. Also, of our about 350 census per year, over 100 of those patients are right here in Murrieta. We're also celebrating our 40th year here in the Valley, and so we just wanted to make that consideration. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Any questions from the dais? I'd just like to thank you for helping our families during the most difficult time in their life. So
Thank you.
Appreciate you and congratulations on 40 years.
Thank you.
Mary Ann and Kateri Tams.
Welcome.
Hello, thank you very much. My name is Marianne Tams, and I'm the garden director at Cultivating Inclusion. And Kateri is my best friend, but she's also a member of a day program run by Care Right, which is located in Temecula, but they go to different locations throughout Southwest Riverside County. That's how they spend their day. And one of the stops that they make, just like they did today, is at our farm, Cultivating Inclusion. And it's over on Alta Murrieta, behind the Floor and Decor. And we've been there since 2015. It was started by 3 gals that are no longer, well, one of them is still, her name is Doreen Camarada, she's still a board member, but Julia Rogoff originally started the group, the concept of having a place for people to go with special needs when they're an adult, when they're out of the ATP program, which is Adult Transition Program, which is something set up for our young people with special needs after they've gotten their certificate in high school. So we also have guests from Temecula, but Murrieta, they come to the farm once a week and we do activities. We plant, we harvest, we weed, we water, we do all sorts of things. And we also have a little fun and laugh and giggle and socialize, right, Kateri? You got friends at the farm?
Mm-hmm.
Have you pulled weeds at the farm?
Yes.
Yes, but that's not when it's friendly. That's not as much fun. But we've had donations and grants that we would appreciate having, anything that we could get, because we spent $4,500 a few months ago buying garden boxes so that people that have mobility issues can get to the plants easier than, getting down on the ground and dealing with that. So we wanted to make it inclusive, because that's what it's called, cultivating inclusion, right? And we have bought, so that's our key thing, accessibility. Starter plants, garden soils, nutrients, fertilizers, maintenance that we need done, a new wheelbarrow, 5 shovels, pest control services, and then snacks and prizes for when we do a bingo game, because we usually get 1 round of bingo in. And we do events there, whatever the holiday is. Once a month, we do an afternoon event. We just had on a Saturday, that's it, thank you. That's okay. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions from the dais? Thank you very much. Councilwoman White.
Hello, ladies. It's nice
Hello.
to see you. Thanks for coming. How did the event go? You had a craft fair, I think, this past
Yes.
Saturday. How did that go?
It went well. We didn't have quite as many people as we had wanted, but we did have some people there selling things. And then we also had a plant exchange group that weren't selling things, they were just exchanging plants, because it kind of lends itself to people that are gardening enthusiasts. That's who our volunteers are, gardening enthusiasts too.
Thank you. And secondarily, you also harvest the food, and will you share a little bit of information about the pantries that
That's
you support?
right. And I know I've taken a few things, but it hasn't been recently to Murrieta. I usually, because I work at St. Vincent de Paul as well, out of St. Catharines, they get some of our fruits, vegetables, and also at Western Eagle in Temecula. But I have taken citrus over to Murrieta. They're very nice people there.
Thank you. Just, I wanted to emphasize that.
Thank you. I forgot to mention that.
You're not only doing work with the youth, but then
Right.
the actual produce is harvested and goes to
It
food
all
pantries
goes to
in
the
our
food
communities
banks.
locally. So
Every bit of it.
perfect. Thank you.
Thank you for asking about it. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mariana Kateri. All right. Any other speakers? Madam City Clerk.
Seeing none.
All right, I'd like to close the public hearing and now move it up to the council for discussion.
58.
Who would like to start? Anybody have any comments, questions, changes? Councilwoman White.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I would like to suggest that we take a little bit of money out of the pedestrian safety enhancement project and give some extra that is not planned for to the Assistance League of Temecula Valley. Considering their numbers of the population that they assist here in Murrieta and the ripple effect that those contributions from Operation School Bell have with our local children in schools and the number of foster care children that are in Murrieta. So depending on the amount that council might consider, I would like to suggest that to help them replenish their reserve funds and to continue doing the work. Other than that, are we doing comments or just questions?
Discussion.
Okay.
And then we'll vote.
Then my next comment, my last comment would be to staff a little bit in that the safe family justice centers. It's noted, you know, our 4 goals are food pantries, women's program, youth development, and domestic violence. And really, just to enhance your great staff report, it would be that the safe family justice centers, it's women's programs, but it's also domestic violence. So with that one, we're really hitting 2 major goals. So I think that only goes to support the request that we are giving them the full amount that Safe Family Justice Centers recommended. So just as a side note. Thank you.
Could we have staff comment on that, as I'm under the impression we are maxed out on our
Yes, thank you.
contribution.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So per the HUD guidelines, the maximum that the city can allocate to the nonprofits through this public sector program is 15% of the full allocation, and that's where that 88,500 is coming from.
That was done so politely and considerately. I did try to slip that in, but I do recall you saying that. Sorry.
That's all right. Good try, good try. I like it. I want to give it all to them. Councilwoman Warren?
You know, I don't know of a nonprofit out there that doesn't need something, that doesn't use it wisely, and hasn't helped our community. I wish we had $1 million and we could split it up evenly and give it to everybody, because everybody does wonderful work in this community. And this is not easy to pick and choose, but I know that it has to be done. So going back to what Jess was said, if we wanted to alter any of these numbers, we would have to take away from somebody to add to somebody else. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, that's correct. The what we have to work with is the $88,500.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Stone, any questions? All right, I would just like to say thank you for everyone speaking on behalf of their nonprofits, and it warms my heart to know that we have so many amazing people doing good for our community, especially those in need. So thank you all, and I would like to call for a motion and a second with what has been proposed by staff. And we have a motion by Councilwoman Stone and a second by White.
Motion carries unanimously, 4-0.
Thank you so much. And Councilwoman White has a comment?
Yes.
Okay.
Before you leave, I just wanted to thank staff. This is always an arduous task. We've revised it in the last year or two that you come to council with some recommendations, which does give us a basis for handling this in a very effective way. But thank you for the report. Thank you for making it a more digestible process for council. As Councilmember Warren said, it's not easy, and we wish we had many more amounts of dollars and funds that we could allocate. But thank you for your work on this and for reviewing the applications and going through the process and the work you put into this on behalf of the applicants and on behalf of Murrieta and the City Council.
Thank you so much. Moving on to discussion. Fifth Amendment to the City Manager and Employee Agreement. Staff, maybe we have a presentation?
I will be presenting this item, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, do we have any council members' questions on this item? No, seeing none. Madam City Clerk, are there any public comments?
Seeing none.
Okay. Any comments or discussions on this?
Would you like
And
me
I
to
need-
give the brief report?
Yes.
Okay. In 2017, the City Council approved an employment agreement with City Manager Kim Summers. The agreement has been amended 4 times to date. The third amendment provided for health coverage as a gap measure upon employee separation. On November 1st of this year, the City Council successfully reviewed Ms. Summers and discussed one amendment to her contract. And the 5th amendment is before you tonight. It's to clarify some vagaries in that 3rd amendment about that health gap coverage, so that it's clear that it applies upon retirement from the city, and that the amount is established as the amount the city pays is established as the amount that's being paid at the time of her retirement. So this is just a cleanup item to clarify that, so there are no issues upon her retirement. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Madam City Attorney. Sorry, I almost skipped you. All right, any questions? Seeing none, do we have a motion? And Councilwoman Warren, and a second? And I'll second that.
Motion passes unanimously, 4-0.
Thank you. We also have the first reading of the 2022 fire codes. And may I have staff? Thank you so much and welcome back.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem DeForest and Council. We are here today to present Agenda Item 11. Prior action on this is that at the City Council meeting on November 1st, 2022, the City Council directed staff to modify and clarify language related to fire apparatus access roads. Due to the modifications, it's necessary for us to reintroduce this ordinance and conduct a new first reading. The State of California Health and Safety Code mandates that the California Building Standards Commission adopt and publish California Building Standards Code every 3 years. This includes the Fire Code. The 2022 edition of the California Fire Code, Part 9 of Title 24 of the California Code of Regulations, automatically becomes effective statewide on January 1st, 2023. State law permits local jurisdictions to make modifications referred to as local amendments that may be more but not in no event less stringent than the requirements adopted by the state. To incorporate local amendments, jurisdictions must make the findings that the local amendments are reasonably necessary due to local climatic, geological, or topographical conditions. In accordance with the requirements of state law and in order to maintain appropriate standards and regulations pertaining to the protection of life and property from fire and other hazards, it's necessary to incorporate within the Murrieta Municipal Code the 2022 edition of the California Fire Code as set forth in Part 9 of Title 24 of the California Code of Regulations, as amended by the Murrieta Municipal Code. The code will constitute the fire code for the city of Murrieta. At the City Council meeting on November 1st, 2022, Murrieta Fire and Rescue recommended the City Council adopt the 2022 Fire Code with local amendments based on these local climatic, geological, and topographical considerations unique to the city. Attachment 1 includes the proposed ordinance adopting the 2022 Fire Code along with the local amendments. The local amendments re-adopt regulations previously approved in prior years and cover some new requirements in the code. At the November 1st, 2022 meeting, the City Council directed staff to provide a crosswalk from the state's fire code to our current and previous municipal fire codes and the local amendments of those. We have provided that as attachment 2. The council also requested that we modify the proposed local amendments pertaining to access for fire departments. We are going to now, Fire Marshal Reinertsen is going to provide the presentation of the changes that were made to our local amendments.
Okay, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. Nice to see everybody again. So this presentation is pretty similar to what we did before, but we did, as Chief said, clarify some things within the presentation for the changes that we made in the municipal code. Okay, the 2022 California Fire Code. Based on the 2021 International Fire Code with California state amendments, local amendments are allowed on the basis of topographical, geological, and climatic conditions, as Chief said. Effective date is January 1st, 2023. Okay, so summary of changes. General cleanup and reorganization, as we discussed before, there were actually many amendments that we had not brought forward this time. Most of those had to do with the model code and the state code catching up. So there were a lot of amendments that we were able to eliminate. The cleanup of the charging language, it was something that just didn't get put together as well last go around. So we did a lot of that in that first charging paragraph. Okay, so the fire department access requirements are something that we spoke a lot about last time we were here. So we added a definition for all-weather surface, but we have changed the definition since then. So that definition now reads, a road surface of asphalt, concrete, approved pavers, or an engineered surface such as decomposed granite compacted to 95%, capable of supporting a 75,000-pound fire apparatus in all weather conditions. Then 50321 was the reduction in the access road width for multifamily and commercial developments from, it was previously 28 feet in the 2019 edition, it is now 26 feet. 50361 is the addition of a provision for remote automatic gate openers. This is currently in the code. We just refined the language to refer to our remote operations, which we are currently using Opticom and currently requiring this on new automatic gates. Oops, I think I turned myself off there. There we go. Okay, this was the other big change since we were here last time. The statement that we added to 50323, this is particular to the surfaces of the roads and goes hand in hand with that new all-weather access road definition. So the language, what the language currently says is fire apparatus access roads shall be designed and maintained to support the imposed loads of fire apparatus at 75,000 pounds and shall be hard surface, paved, or concrete and suitable for fire apparatus. Pervious pavers may be used when designed, installed, and maintained to hold the imposed loads of fire apparatus at 75,000 pounds and are approved by the fire code official. All of that is language that is in our current 2019 municipal code. What we've added to it for flexibility, and we think that this does a better job than our previous attempt when we were here a couple weeks ago. So we added, in rural areas, all-weather surfaces may be utilized for fire apparatus access roads where slopes permit. All-weather surfaces must be maintained to engineered standards. Failure to do so will result in violations as outlined in 15.24.120. That is also something we discussed when we were here last time. The mid-rise ordinance, we have changed the applicable building height to 5 stories rather than 4. So now only buildings 5 stories or higher will be required to comply with the mid-rise ordinance. So again, no change in requirements, no technical changes in the requirements, only to change which buildings are subject to this particular code. Okay, with that, our recommendation, conduct the first reading of a proposed ordinance adopting the California Fire Code 2022 edition based on the 2021 International Fire Code with certain amendments, additions, and deletions, and repealing Chapter 15.24 of the Murrieta Municipal Code in its entirety and replace it with a new Chapter 15.24. Thank you.
Additionally, we recommend also that we set the public hearing and second reading for the city council meeting scheduled for December 6th, 2022.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, and welcome back again. Do I have any questions from the dais? Councilmember Stone.
Thank you. Can we go back to the rural area, please? I think it's 503.2.3. Okay, so with regards to the rural areas, with regard to specialty types of businesses that are in our rural area, are you saying that, yes, they would have to consider an all-weather surface, concrete, hard surface, or paved area? And to me, there's somewhat of an ambiance to those rural types of businesses. You know, I'm kind of looking at, I was just at Wilson Creek Winery today for an event, and, you know, they've got compact,
DG.
Thank you.
DG.
Well, it looked like it was dirt to me, gravel and dirt.
That's what DG looks like.
Is that considered?
They're probably on compact DG.
Okay, and so that's what it looks like, is what Wilson Creek's parking lot is. It's considered the AG.
The roadways, maybe. I'm not sure about the parking lot specifically.
They're parking lots and stuff. And so again, I just want to make sure that we don't lose that ambiance that we would have for those rural areas.
Sure. As we spoke about last time, when we brought this to council last time, we had this was already in the code with the rural areas. That's what we were suggesting, but we had put it to 2 houses. The point was so we didn't end up with neighborhoods in rural areas that didn't have to pave their streets if they were moving away from the public way and were just on a fire access road. So what the fire code governs is a fire access road that goes to the buildings, essentially. We don't govern the parking lots unless they're within access reach of those buildings.
Right, and
So
in that case, it would be. Yes.
If it would be, you know, if the parking lot is within 150 feet of the building, then it would be on the fire access side. So with this code, the way we intend it is that in the rural settings, you're able to use an engineered surface such as compact DG done correctly. Now, that doesn't mean that you can just have a dirt road. What it means is you have to have an engineered surface, which is not always as easy as just putting down DG where you want it to be. You may have to do a lot of road construction to get that compaction to that 95%. Because what we don't want to do, as we talked about last time, is have fire apparatus getting stuck not just from the weather, but from the water that comes out during the suppression operations.
Correct.
So we do want to meet the intent of being able to keep the rural area looking rural when we can.
What are your thoughts?
Thank you. I just have a question. It says too, when we're reading that same statement, that it'll be approved by the fire code official. So could we be more specific on that? And is there an appeal process, or is that the end of it, or can you?
The part that's approved by the fire code official are the pervious pavers, and I think that's just to meet the engineering standards. We have to ensure that they meet the engineering standards. The fire code does provide for an appeal standard, and that's outlined in the fire code that's being adopted.
It is, there is an appeal.
There is an appeal process, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Councilwoman Warren, Councilwoman White. I just have one other question. In 503.6-1, gate openers. Now, is that is not a Knox box, as we talked about before. That is an actual electric opener that is utilized to open the gates? Is this rural areas as well as?
It is just for new motorized gates. And what that looks like is essentially it's a sensor. So we have what we call Opticom on the fire engines and on the trucks. So when we pull up and hit the button, the gate will open so that nobody has to get out of the vehicle. It makes for a quicker response.
Okay, and I'm all for quick response, especially if there's a fire going on. I'm just saying that I know that we installed a Knox box and it was $800, and the sensor was over $2,000. So you have a $10,000 gate and a $2,000 opener. I get that, but should we not allow someone the opportunity of having a Knox box, since it seems to be good for, you know, that was what we were told to upgrade to just last year. So the fire code hasn't changed, or has the fire code changed when it comes to gate openers?
The fire code hasn't changed, the state's code. What has changed is the technology and the prevalence of the technology in the gate systems. So we're trying to capture current technology, which is part of the reason why the code updates. Now, the intent of this is so that we have apartment complexes, commercial areas, that we have access to open the gates. This is, again, the fire code has discretion built into it for situations like this. If we had a single family home, we would have to look at that individually on a case-by-case basis. This is not intended for retrofit, however. This is for new construction on a new project, is how the fire code reads for this, to make that automatic opener.
Okay.
So the existing fire code, for retrofitting, if you have a gate, it has to be open. The fire department has to have access to open that gate. That's the retrofit aspect of it, probably what your situation was.
Right.
But this does not apply to that. This is for new construction only.
Okay. I just think that it'd be nice to give residents the option. I realize it's not the high tech, but some gates don't allow for you to have that technology. Some of the gates are old, and maybe the construction at the property is new. So, and that would be on a case-by-case basis with appeal to, say, our new fire marshal?
Certainly.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you for clarifying this. Thank you for listening to us. We greatly appreciate that, and thanks for bringing it back to us. So any other questions from the dais? All right, I will go ahead and have Madam City Clerk. Is there anyone that would like to make a public comment on this issue?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I have Jessica Adkins would like to donate her time to Howard Omdahl, so he's seeking 6 minutes. Is that-
Fantastic, thank you.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As you may recall, I was here last week. I'm pretty much asking the same thing. Alan Long was a better speaker than me. He apparently got them convinced that it's okay to do it in a rural area, but not in an industrial area. Nowhere else in the code does it separate those two definitions. I'm operating a facility that has nobody living on it. It's unoccupied. We're storing boats and RVs. There's no dwelling units. I always thought the fire department's purpose was life and limb first and property second. But the way the code is set up, they're actually saying if it's alleged that a gravel road is not as safe as a paved road, they're allowing gravel roads to serve residential, but they're denying it to protect property. They're saying, oh no, if you're going to protect property, we need a better road. And it's very unfair. This code was changed in 19. I have adjacent to my project, Robertson Concrete. I sold him that property. I developed the site for him. We have a gravel road coming from Elm Street right to Robertson that's all blocked off. It's been there for 15 years, 20 years, and it's never failed. It's still there, never been used, thank God. Fire access only. It works. All of those projects around there are DG. Both concrete batch plants have DG. United Towing has DG. Eels Materials has DG. To suggest that this fire lane is going to fail because it's not a paved surface, we're adding over $200,000 to my project by asking that this happen. When I started the project, I was before 2019. I was anticipating not having to put a paved road in. I never crossed my mind until this new code came out. If you look across the whole state of California, everybody uses the California Fire Code. It does not require that. If you read the code itself, California Fire Code simply says has to be able to hold the weight of the truck, and it has to have an all-weather driving capabilities. My site is graded. I'm having $500,000 motorhomes driving around it. I'm maintaining it every day. There's no way I'm going to let those vehicles get stuck. The fire truck will never get stuck on my property. It seems ironic that they would put the code in there saying, if you could just strike out the term in rural areas, that would open up, or add the language and industrial. That works too. But to suggest that we're going to lay this down on every industrial project that comes in, there'll be all kinds of different applications, and this is going to always come up. We're over-regulating this. California code, fire code does not require this. This is our local department deciding in our best interest that we need this. I disagree. This is over-regulation. More of this is, every year there's more of it, and we see it as we go along. And I ask you if you could find it some way, I'm sure procedurally, if it's possible, that you can even do this right now. But if you could, I would like to see that. They've struck out a section in there already about the two dwelling units. They've eliminated that. You can continue that red line right through that section that says rural areas. If you did that, that would help me a lot. And I would certainly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Howard. Any other?
Seeing none.
All right. Now we're going to move this up to council member questions, discussions. Councilwoman Stone.
Chief, based on what Howard Omdahl had discussed with regards to the industrial area, with regards to his property, we're not going to be forcing him to do that unless he were to add a building to his property. Is that correct?
I'm reluctant to speak about specific projects during fire code adoption. What I can say is that there's conditions that go into any development that occurs within the city, be that commercial, industrial, whatever the setting will be. If we look at individual properties, we need to not look at just what's inside that property and the assets at risk there that may need suppression efforts, but we have to look at the adjacent properties as well. So if we allow development in industrial settings or commercial settings to not have hard surface roads, if we have a property that's adjacent to a commercial occupancy, tilt-up construction, and we have to put a truck company that weighs 75,000 pounds and do an elevated stream aerial operation fire suppression that's ongoing for hours, as I mentioned last time, this is where we go beyond that, the concept of all weather. We will be eroding our pumping platform out from underneath our equipment. So this is where we have to look at not just specific properties, but how they're impacted by the properties around them that may not have the same use case as they do. So that is one of the considerations that goes into the surface types we want in the industrial and commercial settings.
And the fact that you have an appeals board now, that if Mr. Omdahl decides to do whatever to his property that would trigger him to decide whether it was AG or concrete or whatever, he has the opportunity of appealing it to your appeals board, correct?
Correct, but that's always been in the fire code. We're re-adopting the same appeals language that's existed in the fire code for a very long time.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Council Member and Council Member White.
And besides fire suppression, these codes also show and support that the lives of our firefighters, our first responders, really matter, and that supports that as well. It's more of a statement than a question.
Is that it? Thank you so much. Any other comments or questions from the dais? Thank you again for the clarity. I appreciate it. Welcome again. We're excited to have you. And I'll call for a motion. We have a motion by Councilwoman White, and I need a second. We have a second, and we will have a vote. All right. Motion in a second, and everyone voted. Thank you very much. And moving on to the County Riverside Winchester Community Plan update. I'll have staff.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. Senior Planner Carl Steele here with Development Services. This item tonight is an informational item on a project outside of the city. This is it's a county project, so just sharing some information here that's publicly available. None of this information is from our city. This is information from the County of Riverside. So the project that's proposed by the county is called the Winchester Community Plan Update. You can see here where the plan area is. I have a blow up here on the next slide. It's located essentially between Menifee and Hemet. You can see it's northeast of our city. Highway 79 runs through there, and Newport kind of runs over from Menifee through the middle of it. It's in the unincorporated part of Riverside County. The existing Winchester plan area is a small area, and one of the objectives of the county here is to expand that area, and we'll talk a little bit about that on the slides. They did a project EIR, and that's part of how we got more detail on this because they circulated that for public review. The EIR says that this can result in an additional 33,569 residential units, which is a net increase of 12,329 over what's in the existing plan. So we'll talk a little bit about that. This is a zoom in if you want a little bit more detail on what's there. Essentially looking at an area that's between Menifee and Hemet. Much of it's along Winchester Highway 79 and then the Newport Dominigoni Parkway areas. As you can see in the aerial, there is some existing agriculture in there, and then if you're familiar with the area, folks who drive up there, there's a lot of current home construction along the Newport Dominigoni area. The intent of the county here is, and we'll talk about it a bit when we get into their plans, it's really to establish more of a town in the Winchester area. They kind of have some downtown plans for it, and to add some density there. So it is confusing and complicated. Not only here do we have that smaller area. If we go back, this is a bit of a smaller area. There's also what they call their policy areas, if you look at this slide. So the existing policy area for Highway 79 is much larger. It has the black outline. It includes our annexation area to the northeast of our city. It also includes the French Valley area. So that is proposed to be brought into the Winchester policy area, which is another sort of part of what they're proposing. A number of the comment letters that I've seen back to the county is a lot of people are confused as exactly what they're trying to do. It seems like they're trying to do a lot, and they're not being very clear about it. So just to simplify that a bit, if you look at this slide that they created, the city of Murrieta is currently within what the county calls the southwest area. You can see we're in there. City of Temecula is in there, and they're proposing to change what currently is the Harvest Valley Winchester area, which is in green there, to the new blue outlined area. So our annexation area, the French Valley area, and then those other areas we talked about earlier on in the presentation all become part of the Winchester plan area. But they're not proposing any land use changes within our annexation area, and we'll talk about where those are. So this is the exhibit the county created that shows where the land use changes are in that much smaller area. You can see here by the colors, those are pretty much the properties where they're proposing changes, and there's a lot of mixed use being proposed in the downtown kind of Winchester area, which is north of Newport and Dominigoni. But there are land use changes proposed in the southwestern area. You can see along Scott Road, the new Liberty High School is there, in the light blue, and there's currently a subdivision that was just built in that area. They proposed additional number of homes down in that area, so there is some expansion there. But I'd say 3/4 of what they're proposing in increase in density is in the northern part. And that's where they're kind of focusing on trying to create some more of a downtown around the Winchester area. But these are all the land use changes that they're proposing, and this is what was in the public documents. So their public process, they started this in 2017-18. They had a number of community meetings out there. It seems like it slowed down a bit and it kind of went away. Nobody heard anything about it for a couple of years, and then we heard rumblings about the EIR this year, and then the EIR came out this summer. So it took a bit longer probably than they were planning for. But it is essentially what you might call a general plan update for that part of the county. So they've spent a lot of time working on it. They received a number of comment letters. We're going to talk a little bit about the comment letters. Number of comment letters from cities, from various agencies. They're currently working on response to comments, them being the county staff who are working on this. That's part of the process when you're working on an EIR. You get a whole bunch of comments. CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, requires that you go through those comments. So they're going through those, including the comments we made. They'll be working on getting responses to those into the record. And then the county staff has told us that they plan on going to the Planning Commission early next year, if everything goes according to their plans, and then to the Board of Supervisors in the spring to move forward on the project. So a little bit about the comment letters. We did have some coordination with our staff at Menifee and Temecula. Those of us that are in the planning field know each other well. We did talk a bit in advance when we heard about the EIR. The Menifee did a great job with their comment letter where they talk about the traffic impacts, many of which are the same as ours. So if you saw the comment letter in the staff report, we provided a copy of that. It will also be publicly available in the EIR. Temecula had a whole different kind of comment letter. They kind of talked a bit about, if you read their comment letter, the inadequacy of their project description. They're kind of missing a lot of things, and you can see how, as I showed you some of the exhibits, it's somewhat confusing. And then there's a long-standing agreement between Temecula and the county about road improvements along Highway 79, and it seems like the project's not even paying attention to that. Our comment letter, I would say, really appreciate working with Chief Malloy. We kind of identified that there's a fire and safety issue out there. That area I showed you where along Scott Road, where new homes would be built, we actually have our fire station would be closer than the county's existing fire stations are to that area. So we would anticipate that we would get calls day one when the first house is built out there. Obviously there's existing homes out there, but we're talking about quite an expansion of a number of homes. So appreciate working with Chief Malloy on our comment letter, somewhat highlighting that they didn't even do a fire study at all in the EIR, so kind of pointed that out to them. So that was a big part of our comment letter. Also commenting that they're missing out on public improvements. I talked a bit with Brian Ambrose about, people live out there, they're gonna come use our city services here, they'll be using our sports leagues, things like that. We have to think about public expansion. They did get comment letters from the water districts and school districts that they're not really planning for this type of growth. Also there were comments from the tribes. I would assume they're still working with the tribes. Typically that AB 52 process continues. And then there are environmental groups that are commenting on it as well. I've had experience with Endangered Habitats League before. That's usually not one you want to get a comment letter from. So that completes our presentation. It's just a receive and file informational report, and as staff, we're happy to help with your discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carl. I appreciate it. Is there any comments from the council? Questions, comments?
Sure, I'll start. Thank you so much for your presentation and everything that you've addressed, fire, public improvements, water, school, tribes, environmental groups. It's going to be very interesting to see how this progresses. But more importantly, it's the local infrastructure our roads, Murrieta Hot Springs, Clinton Keith, and I don't remember, was it 33,000 rooftops? Is that the total?
Correct, yeah, 12,000 additional, so you're talking about over 30,000 more people out there. Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, it's what, 4 to 8 drives a day per household?
Right, and yeah, and to expand on that, one of the things the EIR talks about is how there's inadequate services out there. So people are going to have to drive more to get to just basic services.
Right. And so you're talking about, if you're saying between 4 and 8 drives, in my home right now, I have my stepchildren live with me. There are 3 cars just at my home. So do the math. We won't be able to accommodate, the cars ourselves, the freeway. I mean, the freeway is already a debacle as is. And again, the amount of vehicles in our city, I'm hoping that the city of Menifee, the city of Temecula, the city of Murrieta, that we are all going to come together and work together with the county to come up with some solutions. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I can comment that we at this point we're going to want to see what their responses are to our comments, and then we could move forward from there. I mean, they're required to notice all of us now. So we'll be now that we've all submitted comment letters. One of the things that Temecula commented was they didn't feel like they received notice appropriately, and they mentioned that in their comment letter. We did receive a notice, but they'll have to keep us a part of the process, so we can certainly report back on that and continue to coordinate with the other cities on our responses as they work forward on the plan.
And you will keep us abreast to how that is progressing with regards to all the issues that you've just addressed. I mean, when we talk about a drought, I mean, just alone the water, our grids couldn't even handle the electricity during the summer. I mean, to me, it's just, I just cannot even fathom a minimum of 33,000 rooftops. And I think that this report or this Winchester Community Plan is over 15 years. Is that correct? This plan?
Yeah, I believe, correct, Councilwoman Stone, I believe it's, they're planning out, I think the county's plan goes out to 2040, but yeah, they anticipate this being developed incrementally over time, right? And it really, it's a high level document, a general plan type document, so they defer lots of the improvements. They don't really mince words in the EIR. They say this will come in with each project, right? So they're not planning for any of the infrastructure at this point.
Okay.
Excuse me, could I offer one clarification?
Thank you.
On trip generation, I believe a single family dwelling is 10 average daily trips a day and multifamily is 6.
Thank you so much, Ivan. Any other comments?
I mean, just think with Winchester Road alone, when the city of Temecula sued the county because they were rubber stamping development without the infrastructure, the city of Temecula did win the lawsuit. And it was nice to see that Winchester Road was widened in a timely manner. And at that time, they had said that once Winchester is built out, there's no way Winchester Road will be able to handle the amount of cars. And this is something that we're being faced with as well. So not only is our local roads going to be impacted by this, but definitely Winchester. And then talking with Mayor Matt Ron with the new infrastructure, the flyover from on the 15 and 215 where it splits, it won't even be able to accommodate that brand new infrastructure will not even be able to accommodate the amount of cars coming from the Winchester Community Plan. And so I'm hoping that the city of Murrieta, the staff, or even council, that I would like to see us be very aggressive with a plan of action and how the county is going to deal with this, not just with Murrieta, but again with Menifee and Temecula. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Stone. Our city manager has a comment.
That's all right. Didn't know if you could see the little hand up.
I saw the little hand.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to let the council know I have a meeting next week scheduled with the city managers of Menifee and Temecula. So after that meeting, we'll report back and let you know what came from that.
Thank you, City Manager. And Councilwoman Warren.
Well, Councilwoman Stone said everything that's in my head, which is very good. I'm very impressed. I know. But let's just take 2 roads, Clinton Keith, Murrieta Hot Springs. That is going to impact, and those roads are already impacted now. It's just going to make it worse. Nothing's going to get better if we don't all align and get in on this planning stage and have a seat at the table. I agree with Lori Stone that we must be aggressive, we must work with our neighboring communities, and we must do what's best for Murrieta. And that means stand up for our citizens and our roads and make sure that things are in place so that things do not turn into a debacle like it looks like it's going to be. That concludes my comments.
Thank you, Councilwoman Warren. I would just like to make a comment as when you realize how many homes or rooftops that is, that's as many people as is the city of Murrieta. It's 115,000 people roughly in the city of Murrieta, and that's going to end up being the same size. So is this technically going to be the city of Winchester? Is that kind of what I'm getting the feeling this is happening?
That area isn't in anyone's annexation area, so theoretically, if someone were to go down that road, they could look to be their own town. I believe there's an existing Winchester, California elsewhere, but
Okay.
it might have to be something else.
Also, no infrastructure and no public safety piece in that, and the EIR can just get away with just being so brief and not specific.
Yeah. Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem, it's odd. I would say from a planning perspective, the one thing they honed in on was there's a mitigation fee about a ride share and transit improvements because they anticipate that the Metrolink line, train line is planned to go through there to Hemet. There's an existing train line that goes through there. So they're kind of game planning for that by charging each home that gets built within the area for only those improvements, but no other improvements. That was the only thing that I saw in there. And their EIR does talk about how projects will put in the improvements themselves with each project, but
we know how that works.
Right.
Yeah, that's a master plan, all right, isn't it? Okay, so thank you, City Manager. Thank you so much, Carl, for your information. And I guess we just receive and file this. And thank you for keeping us informed on this issue. It's definitely going to be that. So moving on to governing board announcements. Madam City Clerk?
Sorry about that. At this time, we are hearing governing body announcements, which is the opportunity for the City Council to provide miscellaneous reports and announcements. Announcements shall not exceed 2 minutes. The City Clerk will use a timer. We will start with Councilmember White, followed by Councilmember Stone, Councilmember Warren, and Mayor Pro Tem DeForest.
First, I wanted to give a shout out to the city clerk and the city clerk's team for running a very successful election campaign for the city of, not campaign, but for election process. I think that everything was streamlined. There were lots of process improvements, and there were new things introduced to assist the public with quick access to information. So congratulations on a well done job for that. I received comments that the public had perceived the clerk's office as being very proactive, being very helpful, and also very transparent. So hats off to you for that, and thank you very much. And I'd also like to thank Laura Frasso, everyone in the Community Services Department, CSD, Leah Kolek, Brian Ambrose, and the many city employees that worked at our Veterans Day Parade on Friday, the 11th of November. That parade is really special and does show how patriotic our city is. And it is wonderful to have that precede the Murrieta, the Rotary Club of Murrieta's flag Field of Honor. So hats off to them. And my comments will be available on the website as to my activities. And that concludes my governing body announcements.
Thank you so much. And moving on to Councilmember Stone.
I concur with Councilwoman Christy White with regards to our Veterans Parade and staff and Rotary and our city clerk. So thank you very much. And you'll find my governing body announcements on our website. If you have any questions, you can contact me directly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And Councilmember Warren.
Well, I'm going to ditto on all the greatness that our city has done. But I also wanted to thank our city clerk's office and our city staff for standing in the rain on election day with the ballot box and all they verified signatures, and the people themselves dropped them in the box without getting wet. And I know that our staff was drenched. So helping our citizens allow them an easy access to vote. I appreciate that so very, very much. And my governing body announcements will be deferred until the next meeting. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Warren. I would like to also defer mine and ditto on what everyone said. And thank you to our amazing city staff as well. And what a day to vote on, the rainy day. So you girls rock. And there was a all girl except for Ivan today. So probably the first time in Murrieta's history. So way to go, girls. So thank you. And tonight, I would like to adjourn in memory of our Records Management Coordinator, Christopher Ellis. Madam City Clerk, if you could please say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. The City Council meeting is adjourned in memory of Records Management Coordinator Christopher Ellis.
Christopher was born in Memphis, Tennessee, to Ernest and Jacqueline. He served in the United States Air Force from 1986 to 1991, ending his service with the rank of sergeant. Christopher started his career in records management over 20 years ago. In 2004, Christopher transitioned from the private sector to municipal government. He worked for the city of Rialto for 14 years and joined the city of Murrieta City Clerk's office in 2018. For those that didn't know him, he was the person behind the scenes who found records for you, but also he was the first face you saw at every city council meeting as he greeted and assisted the public. For those of us who knew him, we can agree that Christopher was a man of few words, but he had a charisma that quickly brought a smile or laughter to the room. He was an avid sci-fi fan who was a proud Trekkie and loved working for Murrieta. Christopher is survived by his two daughters, Jamani and Christiana, who we keep in our thoughts and prayers. With great sadness, the City Council adjourns this meeting in memory of Christopher Ellis. May he rest in peace. This meeting is now adjourned.
This meeting is now adjourned. God bless his family.